In a garrison town on the North African coast, officers learn their plot has been discovered. They move in daylight, hours ahead of schedule. By nightfall, they hold the barracks, the government buildings, and the streets. Commanders who refuse to join them are arrested. Across the water waits the mainland they mean to seize before the government can grasp what is happening. Welcome to Same Day, Different Century. I'm Zach. Today is July 17th. The mainland was Spain in 1936. 5 years before, in April 1931, Spain's king had left the country after municipal elections in which Republicans swept the cities. Monarchists still won more council seats overall, but the cities were treated as a verdict, and Alfonso XIII left rather than fight for the throne. He left without abdicating. That abdication would come a decade later while he was in exile. A republic took his place. This Second Republic set out to remake one of Europe's most unequal societies. It redistributed land to the rural poor. In the South, a few families owned vast estates, while landless laborers went hungry between harvests. Though in practice the reform moved slowly and reached relatively few, it reduced the Catholic Church's control over education. It granted self-government to Catalonia. It tried to reduce an officer corps widely viewed as oversized. Every reform made enemies. Landowners, clergy, and career officers saw their world under threat. On the left, anarchists and revolutionary socialists judged the republic too cautious. The center struggled to hold the two ends apart. The violence was not new. In October 1934, a miners' revolt in the northern region of Asturias declared a short-lived workers' commune. The government sent in colonial troops from Morocco to crush it, and roughly 1,000 to 2,000 people died before tens of thousands more were jailed. The country lurched between right and left at the ballot box, each side unwinding the other's work. In February 1936, the Popular Front, a coalition of left Republicans, socialists, and communists narrowly outpolled the right, and Spain's electoral system turned that thin margin into a commanding block of seats. The spring that followed brought strikes, land seizures, burning churches, and gunfights between fascist phalangists and leftist militias. Political killings answered political killings. The right feared a Bolshevik revolution. The left feared a fascist seizure of power on the Italian and German model. Each side had begun to speak of the other not as a rival to outvote, but as an enemy to destroy. By then, a circle of generals was already plotting. Their coordinator was Emilio Mola. Their figurehead, in exile in Portugal, was General José Sanjurjo, who was to lead the new regime. Spain's generals had unseated governments before, by proclamation and show of force. They expected this rising to follow the old pattern, a few sharp days, then power. But Mola's secret instructions were not those of a bloodless pronouncement. Violence, he wrote, must be extreme, and the left's leaders eliminated. The terror was in the plan from the start. They fixed on a date in mid-July. 2 killings lit the fuse. On the 12th of July, right-wing gunmen shot a socialist officer of the Republic's assault guards. Hours later, a squad came for revenge. Assault guards, a civil guard officer, and socialist gunmen. They seized a leading monarchist politician, José Calvo Sotelo, from his home and shot him, leaving his body at a Madrid cemetery. That state officers had murdered an opposition leader shocked the country. The generals expected a swift stroke. Whether they would get one turned on the first 48 hours. The rising began where this story opened, in Spanish Morocco, on the afternoon of the 17th. The Army of Africa, including Spanish Foreign Legion and Moroccan regular troops, seasoned in colonial war, was the country's most hardened fighting force, and it went almost whole to the rebels. Officers who stayed loyal were arrested, and a number were executed. On the 18th, the revolt crossed to the mainland. Garrison by garrison, generals declared against the government. One was Francisco Franco. Franco had wavered for weeks before joining, and the Republic had tried to keep him harmless by posting him far from Madrid to the Canary Islands. Now he issued a manifesto, then boarded a plane to fly to Morocco and take command of the Army of Africa. In Madrid, the government dissolved in hours. The prime minister resigned. His successor telephoned Mola to seek a compromise and was refused. A third prime minister took office and ordered arms handed to the trade unions and their militias. That decision proved one of the turning points in determining how the coup unfolded. Where the army struck fast and the workers had no weapons, the coup won. Where workers were armed and the police held firm, it failed. It failed in the places that counted. In Madrid, crowds and loyal troops stormed the rebel barracks. In Barcelona, anarchist militias and police broke the rising and captured its general. Madrid, Barcelona, Valencia, Bilbao, the industrial belt, and most of the fleet stayed with the Republic. Sailors mutinied against their own officers to hold their ships, and by doing so, trapped Franco's Army of Africa on the far side of the water. In the cities that held, the collapse of the old order let loose a revolution. Anarchist and socialist unions seized factories, collectivized farmland, and ran whole districts through their own committees. To defend the Republic, the government had armed a movement it could not fully control. Within 3 days, the plan for a lightning takeover had failed. The country was cut apart. The Republic kept most of Spain's population, nearly all its industry, the gold reserves, and most of the fleet, while the rebels controlled large parts of the conservative interior, the west, and much of the south. A coup had turned into a war. The rebels' best troops were stranded in Africa, cut off by a hostile fleet. To bring them across, Franco looked abroad. Within days, he appealed to Hitler and Mussolini. Hitler agreed almost at once. Rome refused first, and then, within the week, changed its mind. From late July, German and Italian aircraft began lifting the Army of Africa across the Strait of Gibraltar, one of history's first major strategic military airlifts, while in early August a convoy ran thousands more across by sea under their air cover. It proved crucial to sustaining the rebellion. Without it, the rebellion's finest soldiers might have stayed penned in Morocco behind the Republican Navy. Instead, they crossed into the south and pushed north toward Madrid. The war now drew in the powers of Europe. Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy sent Franco planes, tanks, and men. From the autumn, the Soviet Union armed the Republic and sent advisors, and was paid for in gold from the reserves of the Bank of Spain. The Communist International gathered roughly 35,000 volunteers from dozens of countries into the international brigades. Britain and France, dreading a general war, led a non-intervention pact that embargoed arms to both sides. Germany, Italy, and the Soviet Union signed it and ignored it. Britain and France largely observed the embargo. The effect was to starve the Republic of weapons while the rebels were kept supplied, and many historians see that imbalance as one of the war's decisive factors. The dying was not confined to the front. Behind both lines, the killing was systematic. In the Republican zone, militias and improvised tribunals shot somewhere between 40 and 50,000 people. In the rebel zone, the toll was roughly double, perhaps 100,000, and unlike the Republican terror, it was directed from above, and it didn't stop when the war did. Counts of the war's dead differ, and older figures near a million have since been revised down. Many historians now place the toll close to 500,000, from combat, execution, and hunger. The fighting dragged on for nearly 3 years. The Republic held Madrid through the winter of 1936. When Franco's columns reached the capital's edge that November, militias, madrileños, the 1st International Brigades, and Soviet tanks and fighters stopped them among the university buildings, under the cry that they shall not pass. The government withdrew, first to Valencia, later to Barcelona. In the rebel zone, the generals settled supreme command on Franco, proclaimed head of state that autumn. The following spring, he forced the rival right-wing movements into a single party under his own hand. Franco's rivals had a way of dying. Sanjurjo, the plot's designed leader, was killed in a plane crash on the 4th day of the rising. José Antonio Primo de Rivera, the Phalange's founder, was shot by the Republic that November. And when Mola died in a plane crash in June 1937, the last man who might have spoken as Franco's equal was gone. On the Republican side, the factions turned on one another, communists against anarchists and dissident Marxists in the streets of Barcelona. The Republic gambled its last strength on an offensive across the River Ebro in 1938, the largest battle of the war, and could not keep the ground it won. Barcelona fell in January 1939, and roughly 500,000 refugees fled north across the Pyrenees into France. In March, the Republic turned on itself one last time. An army colonel overthrew the government in Madrid, hoping to bargain. Franco would not bargain. Madrid fell at the end of the month. On the 1st of April, Franco declared the war over. He would rule Spain for 36 years until his death in 1975. Victory did not end the killing. In the years after 1939, tens of thousands more were executed or sent to prisons and labor camps. The Republic's supporters met exile, jail, and the firing squad. The regime's monuments and unmarked graves would outlast the man who built them. Contemporaries read it as the opening battle of a wider war, and much of what they saw in it, cities bombed from the air, ideologies armed for total war, and democracies unwilling to intervene, Europe would see it all again within months. Whether Spain was a rehearsal is another question. The generals who watched it took away as many wrong lessons as right ones. Spain buried its dead, but not its argument. Even now, the country still debates whose memory to honor and whose graves to reopen. That same day, different century. I'm Zach. We'll be back tomorrow with another date, another story. Thanks for listening. Hey guys, it's Zach. Real quick before you go, I just wanted to say thank you so much for listening. It really means a lot. If you enjoyed the show, all I ask is that you share it with someone that you think would enjoy it too. That's the best way to help us out. I'll see you tomorrow.